Hello, everyone. Ooh, sorry, I'm a little. Hello, everyone. This is Nary once again. Persian pen name on AO3. Today, I am joined by a very special co-star for my transition stories. She's somewhere around here. It's my cat Moxie. Mox. There we go. Hey, baby. Uh, let's see what's been going on this week. Lots of work. Um, it was legal. I'll tell about it. I occasionally indulge in entirely legal uh, gummies, and this last week I I say occasionally, it's 3-4 times a year, um, so they last me a while. I got a container. I misread the label very badly. I thought that what I was having was 12.5 milligrams. It was 125 milligrams. I do not recommend. Uh, read your labels carefully, people. It's very important. Yeah, so that's my story of this week. I got a nice Chuck Tingle shirt. Do approve. Do encourage everyone else who likes it to get it. Yes, hello, Mox. That's been my week. Haven't really noticed any voice or face changes still. Uh, Still getting my mask acne because that's how we roll. Man, what are you doing? Um, I have a couple of I have a couple of different stories that I could read today, and I might end up doing a longer one and just do several of them. For this week, I was thinking to do some of the Locked Tomb stories that my friend Nary has written. No, do not get on the desk, baby. I might put her up. She might end up being more trouble than she's worth over here. I don't know. So we'll start with the first one, which was written for Chocolate Box Round 6 in 2021. It's the Locked Tomb, rated T. It's Jen. The tags are chatting and messaging, Discord format, crack, Silas Octokizaron ruins fandom, RLF, real Lyctor fiction, fandom illusions and cliches and references. It's from Gideon the Ninth in the Locked Tomb, series now, except they have Discord and AO3, and Gideon abuses the sunglasses emoji. The title is the very fantastic Lyctor, I hardly know her. So in the Canaan House channel, Silas. I feel obligated to tell the group that one of our number has written some problematic fan fiction. This noxious filth ought to disqualify the author from the lectoral process. Ianthe. Oh no, so sad. Coronabeth. That's awful. Do you have a link? Silas. I don't feel it's appropriate to share in the general group chat. There are children here. Jean-Marie. Okay, but we're not children, though. Isaac. We're really not, though. If I'm old enough to be a lictor, I'm old enough to see some emoji, or eggplant emoji, Thor. Some dictor. Abigail. And what exactly is that supposed to mean, Isaac? Isaac. That I'd like some healthy veggies? Abigail. Mm-hmm. More important than whatever the story's about. Who are you accusing, Silas? Who wrote it? Silas. It has come to my attention that Lady Septimus has an AO3 account under the username NecroRose. It's not simply one story that's an issue here. The account contains over 100 works, the bulk of which are not only pornographic, but blasphemous. Marta. Blasphemous how? Silas. She writes RLF. Column. Real Lyctor fiction. Jean-Marie. Oh my god, that's so cringe. Ianthe. I can't believe I'm agreeing with the toddler, but that is pretty cringe. Silas. Necromancers and cavaliers, mingling together in unseemly ways, in pairs or trios or groups. Gideon. Sounds spicy. Calamities. I mean this in all sincerity. Who cares? Harrowhark. Good point. I don't see how this matters. Abigail. RLF and RPF more generally have a long tradition in historical fiction. Consider Gilded Lily or The Chain and the Anchor. I really don't see the issue here. Magnus. Gotta agree with the wife there, Dr. Kisserin. Sounds like a harmless enough hobby. Gideon. I know a guy who writes RPF, and it's terrible. Not morally terrible, I just mean it's really bad. Harrowhark. Griddle, stop. You'll make me get the Noniad stuck in my head for 1,000,000 years. Silas. None of you seem to understand the seriousness of this offense. It should be immediately disqualified. Lictors call one another brother and sister. Writing about them copulating is basically incest. There are often substantial age gaps, not to mention all kinds of other problematic tropes. Nibirius. Yeah, so I went to the page and read this one called Siphoned by the Sixth. It was pretty hot. Coronabeth. Ew, gross, Babs. Link me in DM. Isaac. Me too. Abigail. No. Gideon. There's one called Lyctor. I hardly know her. This is amazing. I'm bookmarking all of these. Harrowhark. Wait, you have an account? How did I not know that? Did you subscribe to me? Gideon. There's a lot you don't know about me, sunshine. Sunglasses emoji. Calamities. Look, I say again, who the fuck cares? It's called fiction for a reason. Or are you too dense to realize that? Judith. At worst, this is kind of awkward, since it could be about her potential future co-workers. It's not a crime, it's just a bit creepy if they found out about it. Silas. Some of these stories, I hesitate to say, even include the divine resurrector himself, in positions that are very much not benefiting his glory. Camilla. Wait. Are you actually getting bent out of shape over this because she writes the Necrolord Prime as a bottom? Silas. If you're going to write fic about God, he should at least be the one topping. Magnus. Whoa, nothing wrong with bottoming. Calamities. Check your toxic masculinity, bro. Silas. This whole chat is toxic. I can't believe I'm stuck here with you people. Teacher. Sorry, I had the room muted. Thanks to everyone who let me know there was a problem. I think everyone needs to take a step back and a few deep, calming breaths. Dulcinea. Oh my god, I can't believe this. You waited until you knew I was asleep, then looked at my tablet to see my AO3 username? This is a low, even for you, Ave. I'm a grown-ass woman. I'm older than all of you. I'm sick, I'm stressed, and I'm very, very tired. If I want to write quote-unquote problematic fiction as a coping mechanism, I will damn well do as I please. Abigail. You're 27. You're not exactly geriatric. Dulcinea. It feels like sometimes when children get in my face about my fiction, which is not real, no real feels like it sometimes. No real people were harmed in the making of these stories. They're even archive locked, so you had to have been snooping to find them. Protesilaus. Ship and let ship, Dr. Kisserin. Silas. Shipping the saints and the king undying himself is heretical and an abomination before our Lord. You're a degenerate pervert, and you should never receive the divine honor of being a Lyctor. Dulcinea. Cordially, get fucked. Gideon. If you did, that might help. Sunglasses emoji. Silas. Fine. I challenge the 7th. And 9th, you're next unless you know what's good for you. Gideon. Oh yeah, bring it. Sunglasses emoji, sunglasses emoji, sunglasses emoji. Dulcinea. You're really going to challenge me, you pasty-faced clown. You have no idea what you're doing. Teacher. Okay, everyone, this has gone far enough. Do I need to lock this room until you can all calm down? Coronabeth. It'll be okay, teacher. I think they're taking it offline. Babs and Ianthe are going to keep an eye on things. Teacher. Oh, well, I'm glad that settled down at least. Isaac. Okay, but I'm still not sure how you read the stories. Do you have to make an account or something? Jean-Marie. I'll show you. The end. Well, this already has a podfic. Oh, well. Okay. Well, now it has 2, kind of. I was going to have a thing where I didn't do stories of other things where they already had a podfic. Not because, I'm against that in any kind of way, just so I didn't step on other people's toes, and because there's so many stories out there that are great and don't have podfics. So it looks like I will be reading a second one today. So that was Lyctor, I Hardly Knew Her by Nary. Let's see what else we have got. I'm also not so sure how I did on the voices. I was trying to go for, goodness, what is her name? She's fantastic. Moira Quirk. I was trying to do based on hers, but it has also been some time since I read or listened to the first one. And I'm sure that I got them all mixed up. I cannot remember for the life of me what Abigail sounds like. Except for 4. So let's see what this one's all about. Ooh, this is a longer one, which is good because I did a short one last week. Bloxy, will you quit scratching on Daddy's chair? Ma'am. So, this one is called The Emperor's Daughter. It's alternate universe. Harrowhark Nonagesimus goes to the ball. It's got courtship, flirting, bad flirting, awkwardness, and ballroom dancing. It was for Yuletide 2020. It is another Locked Tomb story, of course. And it was written for Inkwitch. Harrowhark knew, in an academic fashion, that attending a ball typically involved dancing. Her practical experience in that regard, however, had been desultory. Iglemony was a half-hearted and half-legged instructor, and Ortis as a partner left much to be desired, with his tendency to get distracted by thinking of a particularly good line for his poem, and then step on someone's feet, either hers or his own. She found herself, therefore, rather at a loss when presented with the full spectacle of the imperial ballroom, with its bright swirls of dancers and gleaming lights. At least, she thought, no one would be likely to ask her to dance, and she would be spared the embarrassment of making it abundantly clear to everyone that she didn't really know how. So when a pale, blonde necromancer, whose golden robe was artfully draped off one skinny shoulder, approached her, Harrow initially assumed she was probably going to ask her where the bathroom was, or to move out of the way because she was blocking the way to the chocolate fountain. Instead, the pallid woman held out her hand. Harrow looked at it like it was a dead rat being presented to her on a plate. Come on, the woman said under her breath. Dance with me before everyone starts to stare. Why? Why? You're just making this work for the both of us, you know. She took Harrow's hand without waiting for her to respond, and led her forcibly onto the dance floor. Harrow could tell she was from the third house, but she still had no idea why someone like this could possibly want to dance with her. The ball was intended to solicit suitors for the Emperor's sole child and heir, beloved daughter of the Lord Undying, the river's pontifex, her divine highness. It was not some mediocre social networking event. What do you want? She demanded irritably, as the woman wrapped one bony arm around her waist in a distressingly intimate way. I want to be able to say I once danced with the daughter of the ninth. Is that so hard to believe? Yes, said Harrow through gritted teeth, trying not to slip over the ridiculous skirts of her to trip over the ridiculous skirts of her gown. Fine, look, said the woman, eminently and infuriatingly reasonable. We can't all marry her grand high ladyship of the dead and reborn, and some people here don't even want to look. Some people here don't even want to. Look, Abigail Pent is already married, and she's here. Isaac Tetterus is approximately 12, and Silas Octokizaran is whatever he is. But they all came regardless. And why shouldn't we all take the opportunity of this grand event to accomplish our own goals, too? Harrow was, if anything, more confused than before. What goals? Winning this year's Most Irritating Necromancer Award? She ignored the jibe. Let me introduce myself. Ianthe Tridentarius, Princess of Ida. You might have heard of my twin sister, Princess Coronabeth. She inclined her head in the direction of the glamorous figure who stood out like a phoenix among the grey doves of the sixth house. My elder sister, she added meaningfully. Harrow was an only child, quite literally. She was the sole person under the age of 25 in her house, and had a tenuous grasp on the notion of sibling rivalry. So what? You're jealous of her and want my help to kill her and make it look like an accident, so you'll be heir to the third house? Ianthe laughed in her face, and then twirled her around in a way that made Harrow's head spin. I don't know what you're talking about. Coronabeth makes for an excellent distraction, which lets me get some actual work done. If she died, I'd have to go to dozens of these ridiculous events, not to mention hanging around with Niberius even more than I already do. Then what do you want? Harrow demanded. I want to see your inner sanctum, said Ianthe in a weirdly seductive tone. The library in Drearburg. It's said that the ninth has books that have been forgotten everywhere else, tomes of ancient and forbidden lore. This was entirely true, and Harrow felt both nervous and excited at the prospect. I think that sounds so hot, Ianthe murmured, letting her scrawny fingers trail down Harrow Hark's arm in a way that makes her shiver. You should see their copy of Busty Cohort Invader Vixens, said an unfamiliar voice. Both of them turned and looked up, quite far up, to see the golden eyes of the mistress of the Mithraeum, Regina Sacrorum, conqueror of the rising tide, her divine highness Gideon Prime. The Necrolord's daughter was tall and broad-shouldered, with short-cropped red hair and a distractingly crooked smile, and Harrow and Ianthe were struck dumb for a moment at her presence. Am I butting in? She asked, hands shoved into the pockets of her finely tailored tailcoat. Or are you actually here for the great Dayton Marathon? She looked from one to the other, giving each a casual once-over. How about you first, sweetheart? She said to Ianthe. Harrow felt unaccountably rejected, as if she'd been measured and found wanting, even though she had absolutely no interest in becoming the bride of an arrogant, high-handed jerk like Gideon Prime. The junior princess of the third house allowed herself to be taken into the strong arms of her divine highness, but shot a "we're not finished here" look at Harrow before she was swept away in the flood of dancers. Harrow, left behind like a piece of debris cast up by the tide, was simultaneously relieved and disgruntled. Did her divine highness just give you the cut direct? Said a young man in the milk-toast gray robes of the sixth house. Harrow eyed him warily, at a loss as to why he would be speaking to her. She said she was going to dance with Ianthe first, she heard herself saying pathetically, which implies someone else second. I assume she'll dance with everyone, shrugged the tall, gangly gentleman. At least, everyone who isn't hiding in the bathroom to avoid her. He bowed politely, then adjusted his spectacles, which had slid down his nose in the process. Permit me to introduce myself. Palamedes Sextus, warden of the sixth house, who is strongly considering a broom closet to avoid overcrowding. Does anyone here actually want to marry the Emperor's daughter? Harrow asked. That's a great question, said Palamedes. I assume someone must. Lady Dulcinea Septimus says she's, and I quote, stacked. It doesn't appeal to me personally, but I can imagine how it would to others. And quite aside from her physical charms, there's the prospect of the enormous power and honor that would come with the match, of course. Power that comes through marriage isn't truly earned, Harrowhark said primly. Well, I don't know about that, Palamedes replied. Maybe you can look at it as a kind of trial to pass through, or a test of will. Perhaps a scientific experiment? That's how I would approach it if I were in your position. What position? Harrow was beginning to feel like everyone here knew something, many somethings she didn't. It was true that the ninth house kept to themselves for the most part, rarely attending the galas and parties that the other houses participated in, like well-dressed blood sport. But she had always considered that a virtue, not a detriment. It felt like a trite platitude to realize now that there was more to the world than books and bones and prayers. The position of being Her Divine Highness's type, which I am very much not for any number of reasons, thank God. Her type? Harrow struggled to wrap her head around the idea that she might be anyone's type. What was Gideon's type, then? Small and cranky and more interested in bones than people? Her gaze followed to where Ianthe and Gideon moved effortlessly across the dance floor, the elegant blonde wrapped snugly in the embrace of Her Divine Highness. Clever, she thought, and delicate and dangerous. If they were both Gideon's preferred type, and thus the most plausible matches for her to choose from, then perhaps Harrow had acquired a rival without actually meaning to. Now she wondered if Ianthe's earlier conversation with her had been merely to get a sense of what type of challenge she was up against, rather than out of any particular interest in the contents of her library. The thought made her feel unexpectedly bitter, even if she hadn't especially enjoyed the dancing, or the physical contact, or the idea that someone might be interested in some of the things even if she hadn't especially enjoyed the dancing or the physical contact. The idea that someone might be interested in some of the same things she was interested in had been pleasant, for at least a few seconds. I think the Silas voice made it's hard on the throat. But don't worry, said Palamedes, looking at the face journey she was going through behind her skull makeup. Since you're not interested in a political marriage, I'm sure someone as intelligent as you're reputed to be can find a way to get out of it. Challenge her to a duel, or vomit on her shoes, or act like the isolation of the night has driven you mad. His pale gray eyes flickered over to the dance floor, and he added, Best make up your mind what you're going to do now, though. Here she comes. Her Divine Highness Gideon Prime swept through the assembled guests, who parted before her like the pages of a well-worn book, falling open always to the same place. She gave the faintest bow to Harrow, who realized that everyone was staring at her. Daughter of the ninth house, will you do me this honor? She asked, her voice low and sultry. Her hand was calloused and warm, and Harrow took it gingerly, following her escort into the crowd. The option of vomiting on her shoes seemed to be out, at least for the moment then. She felt faint as Gideon led her onto the floor, but somehow failed to actually pass out, although she did find herself leaning more heavily than she meant to on those well-muscled arms. This is all going to be pretty weird for you, huh? Said Her Divine Highness. You ninth house nuns don't get out much. Yes, said Harrow stiffly. I mean, no. We have our sacred duties to attend to, which leaves little time for such frivolity. Yes, ma'am. Gideon gave a devastatingly charming laugh as she gently spun her partner across the floor. Harrow almost forgot for a moment that she hated dancing. Tell me about it. Sacred duties are the worst. Like getting married, am I right? Somehow it hadn't occurred to Harrow that Her Divine Highness might be just as unenthused about wedding a random stranger as the rest of them were. I suppose so. Just as she was beginning to feel the slightest hint of sympathy for the Necrolord's daughter, Gideon managed to spoil it by leaning close and saying, I always wondered, is it true the skeleton paint goes everywhere? Like, not just the face, but a full body job? You're disgusting, Harrow said, then realized she had just told the heir divine that she was disgusting, and almost did vomit on her shoes after all. Fortunately, her insult just made Gideon laugh again. Hey, I had to ask. And then, most obnoxiously of all, she winked. Harlot novices of the ninth might not have been a reliable research source. Infuriated, Harrow pulled away from Gideon's embrace mid-step. I didn't come here to be propositioned like this. Oh shit, said Gideon. How did you plan to be propositioned? Just tell me, and I'll give it another try. The crowd was staring at them, Harrow realized, her face hot and flushed under its heavy layer of paint. As she saw it, she had two choices under the circumstances. To storm off and humiliate her entire house, a tempting option, or to stay and finish the dance and then storm off. She grudgingly stepped back into place and allowed Gideon to wrap one of those unfairly strong arms around her waist and resume the dance. Let's get this over with, she hissed. Whatever you say, my tenebrous mistress, Gideon replied with a grin. To Harrow's immense relief, the dance ended swiftly after that, and she was able to make her escape back to the shadows of the sidelines. She felt like she was sweating through her brocade robes, and wondered if her makeup was running. Interesting choice, Ianthe Tridentarius murmured in her ear, making her jump. It's not going to work, though. What? Playing hard to get. I can see why you tried it. Her Divine Highness does like a challenge. I'm not playing anything, Harrow snapped. I'm not interested in any of these pointless games. Of course that's what you would say. And maybe you even believe it, Ianthe replied. Look, I meant what I said earlier. I'd love to explore your house's library. Maybe Giddy and I can visit as part of our honeymoon tour, darling. She gave a little flick of her fingers, half wave and half as though she was trying to get rid of an irritating insect, and turned away in a flourish of golden silk. Harrow, unaccustomed to so many emotions and experiences all at once, struggled to put a name to the feeling that was burning her up from within. Jealousy? Resentment? Competitiveness? Finally, she settled on, I will melt the bones of her face into pudding and call it fair. It didn't mean that she actually wanted to marry Gideon herself, far from it. It just meant that she wasn't about to let Ianthe's smug bitch Tridentarius win either. This was a totally healthy and rational approach to the problem, and one that was surely not bound to have any unexpected consequences. The end. Oh, Harrow, you're an idiot. I love you, and you're an idiot. I cannot do a Gideon voice. It's just, I can hear it, but I can't make it happen. So, you just get my voice, for the most part. Yes, monks. Oh, it's grooming time? It's grooming time. So that is The Emperor's Daughter. I really like the AU chapter in Harrow the Ninth. I like Harrow Nova. Abigail just going, absolutely not, in the coffee shop AU was fantastic. Nary also did a great one in that AU, so you should definitely go and read it. Honestly, read a bunch of her stuff. She's in a lot of fandoms that I'm not familiar with, so I picked one that I knew. She has a lot for exchanges. So there's a lot of work in there. There's a lot of good stuff. Yeah, excellent couple of fics. I'm glad to have read them. Got my great little co-star here sitting in my lap. So that is this week's story, and I hope you all have a great time. Be safe, be good, be kind to each other. That's all I got. Yep, what, Mox, what are you doing? Get some kisses?